All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here for From 50% to Closed Won. Ask me anything on navigating the messy middle. I see folks are already jumping in, which is awesome. Feel free to use the chat to say hello. We love when you guys engage and participate in our webinars. So feel free to say hi. Feel free to say where you're calling in from. And we'll get started in just a moment. We have tons to talk about today. We're really excited. All right, I see that number popping up. Feel free to use the chat. Don't be shy. There we go. From Spain. Love it. That's a good start. Perfect. Awesome. All right, well, we'll let folks continue to join in. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Nicole Kaysen. I'm the event marketing specialist here at Consensus, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So this webinar is presented by Consensus, the product experience platform that empowers sales teams to deliver interactive demos, engaging product tours, and immersive simulations. And you can learn more at goconsensus.com. And before we begin, I obviously have to give a quick plug for DemoFest X London. We will be there next month, actually just in a few weeks on October 8th. We'd love for you to join us. I'll go ahead and put the registration link in the chat after this. And then I'm also very excited, if that slide changes, to share that we are launching a brand new event, and this time it is for our sales friends. So Revamp is built for sales leaders who know that enabling buyers is the fastest path to revenue. So this is a one-day virtual conference, November 5th. I will share the link in the chat, but definitely check it out. We are so excited to share this brand new event. All right, so before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to encourage you to participate in today's webinar. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A at any time. Please feel free to use the chat. Like I mentioned, we really love when you engage and participate with us. And if at any times you're having technical difficulties, just locate that gear icon on the bottom of your screen. It'll give you some tips to troubleshoot. Okay, so now please help me in welcoming our speakers. Today we are joined by Consensus's very own SVP of Customer Success and Buyer Enablement, Todd Jansen. And then we also have the founder of Sam Sales Consulting, Sam McKenna. So welcome to the stage. Thank you both for being here. I'll give each of you maybe a minute just to kind of formally introduce yourselves.
Todd, take it away.
Oh, wow. Okay. Todd Jansen, SVP of Customer Success and Solutions here at Consensus. I've been here for about a year and a half. Prior to that, I was at Salesforce for 20 years, and there I led the company's demo strategy and brought Consensus in to change the way Salesforce, the powerhouse in sales, sold, and did a pretty good job of that. If I don't say so myself, we deployed to over 15,000 sellers and saw some pretty incredible results as part of that.
Congrats. 20 years at Salesforce. What a ride that must have been. And really in their heyday and inception and everything. Awesome to hear. Hi, you guys. I'm Sam McKenna. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO of #Sam Sales Consulting. I have been in enterprise sales for coming up on about 20 years at this point, and worked for a bunch of companies out in the Bay Area as a individual contributor, leader, executive leader, and then wrapped up my time in corporate at LinkedIn, selling LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the other technology that I love and live and breathe every single day, and then have been working at Sam Sales as our CEO since about the fall of 2019. So that's us in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you guys for joining us. So just to kick things off, one thing we shared is that buyers spend only 17% of their time with vendors, which means 83% of the buyer journey happens without you. So today we're going to talk about kind of what happens in that in-between meetings, navigating that messy middle and getting to the finish line. And this webinar is a bit different for us because we actually asked all of you who registered to submit questions so that way we can talk about it. So I'll go ahead and give you all the first question, and that's going to be, what are some best practices to tee up your prospects during a discovery call to be more receptive to receiving asynchronous communications between meetings?
Oh man.
And let me know if you need to repeat.
Todd, what do you think? Do you want me to go first, or you have some thoughts?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really important, right? What Nicole had just mentioned a second ago is that buyers are spending so very little time with us. So having that communication in between meetings and doing that async learning is so important. If you heard it, right? Like it's less than 20% of the time is being spent with us. And think if we're one or two or three vendors they're considering, that means what? We're getting 4 or 5, 6% of the buyer time. So how do we maximize that time? It's by making sure that we stay in touch in the nitty gritty of the meetings, right? Our meetings and conferences, things like that, they're the bricks of our sales process. But what's the mortar? How do we fill in all those gaps in between those big boy meetings? And I think to me, Ren, just being transparent about it. So if I was selling to Todd, it's coming your way, Todd. Don't worry, I'm going to sell to you soon. If I was selling to Todd, I might say something like, I'm going to stay in touch throughout. If I see something that would catch your eye, or if I see something that would be of help to you, I'll send it your way. I'll send you DMs as well. Do you prefer text, by the way? Because I can text you as well if that's easier. It's my sly way of trying to get Todd's number so that I can start to text him, because something interesting happens also when you get on text spaces with your clients. Sometimes they think about something they want to ask you and they're like, oh, I'm just going to text her. So now I've got email, I've got our meetings, I've got conferences, I've got LinkedIn DMs, I've got texts. I've got a whole lot of ways that I can stay in touch and keep not only a drip campaign of awareness about me going, but also hopefully continuing to accelerate the deal by educating and staying in touch with my buyer. Todd, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And you used the word educating, which is kind of how I see the modern seller right now is you really have to be more of a coach, right? You have to be adding value between every single meeting. And that means you're educating your buyer. And so it's twofold, right? Like after you hang up, if you can send them something to further their education, you're winning. That'll also help you get more frequent meetings with them. We have a stat here at Consensus. When we can get weekly meetings, our win rates go up 10x.
Mm-hmm.
And today that's crazy. You're like, well, who wants to meet with you weekly? Well, if you're adding value and you're educating, they will. But if you're not, yeah, good luck on the weekly meeting.
Nobody wants to meet with me weekly, that's for sure.
No.
I think even just think about that though, right? So if we can get weekly meetings, I think this is a underutilized and I think necessary part of enterprise selling specifically, but then even your mid-market deals as well. If you have something that has a really long sales cycle, we're working through procurement, we're negotiating, things are changing, et cetera. Getting that weekly or bi-weekly, if you can even at least get that meeting on the books, is critical. It's also a touch point where every single meeting we have, we then are owed something at the next meeting. We have homework as a sellers, our buyers also have homework, and it kind of serves as a deadline to make sure that we actually have something to report on by the next meeting. Doesn't mean every meeting is going to happen, right? But it also just lets us create that static cadence. I think the educating thing that you mentioned, Todd, is also really important. So if you have just following up as part of your email sequence, right, or the things that you do, right, just kill that immediately, because all that does is serve us. I might as well just write Todd and be like, hey, are you going to sign today or what? Not a really efficient or effective thing to do. So what I want to think about is, how do I educate? How do I say, don't forget I exist? You have a proposal, you have a contract, you have something from us that I really want you to sign. How do I educate you? How do I add value? And I think one of the kickers is that we're not asking for anything in that email, touch point, DM, whatever it is. We're simply communicating something. So Todd, if I send you an email that says like, hey, I saw this great article, I thought it'd be helpful. Here's what I loved. By the way, do you have 5 minutes to catch up on the proposal? I'd look pretty cheesy. But if I killed that proposal thing, you already know what I want, right? If I just killed that line and I added value, not only am I still staying top of mind, but I'm painting myself to be a different seller and kind of the rest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We have this visual we use here at Consensus where I kind of think of it like the Indiana Jones movie with like this rope bridge. And so you got this rope bridge between rock pillars, right? And that's kind of your path to getting the deal done. And in between every call, there's danger, right? There's risk, right? You could almost think of like, well, what's down below between all those bridges? Well, it's the competition is down below. Yeah. And so to your point, with those touch points and that drumbeat, one thing maybe you didn't realize you're doing, but you're doing, is you're boxing out the competition. You're not letting them get a foothold in. And that's a big piece of it, given that stat that we started with, that 17%. If there's 3 vendors in the mix, you've got, less than 5% of time. You're trying to actually maximize your share.
Yeah.
So
I use movie analogies all the time, but usually mine are from like the 90s. I think you went back, I think maybe to the 80s. I feel like I have to modernize mine, but Indiana Jones is always going to be ahead. I think just one other thing, you guys might be listening to our advice and be like, yeah, that's obvious. That's 101. Everybody's going to do that. People don't do it. So I think we often look, especially today in our culture of sales, like we look for silver bullets, we look for easy wins. We're not proactive. We're not on top of it. We're not communicative. So you think about if the kind of competition, right? They are under those rope bridges, but the bar is really low for what our competition is doing. So even just a little effort makes a difference. But here's the cool part too, going back to that educate word, right? When Todd talks about that, I think not only are we adding value to our buyers, but we're building trust and credibility in ourselves, which will make them say like, oh, let me ask them a question. They seem to really know their stuff. Now we're turning ourselves from being a seller into more of a consultant. We know our craft. So I even think about this like with consensus, right? How do we add all of these documents? How do we add things together to make sure that there's easy access that could be passed around, that at 2 a.m. when our buyer is thinking about, I want to look into this, or I finally have time to look at it, which frankly happens at 2 a.m. sometimes. How do we make sure that they have enough, that it's not just following up emails and content we've sent them, but things that are really adding value to their buying process?
And I know we're going long on this one, but I'm so glad you brought up time of day because I think it's relevant. We have a customer that looks at all their consensus content, and 41% of it is consumed outside of what you'd call traditional working hours. That's a really powerful stat, right?
Yeah.
And the other really interesting stat that we have is that 9 a.m. on Saturday is the most frequently viewed time for executives. And it makes sense, right? They're busy all week. They're flying around. It's Saturday morning. They open up the laptop. They've got their cup of coffee. They're catching up on what they want to catch up on. And if you're there with a video or something they can click around on, you're going to win.
Yeah, I think that it's such an important thing, right? Like that kind of async learning, but it's outside of work hours. So work hours, we're doing this, we're back to back, we're on webinars, we're on meetings, we're doing everything that we have to do that other people during their work hours depend on us for. The extra hours, right? That's for the things we need to accomplish above and beyond the norms of our job, right? Are the things that we do want to focus on. I think it's so important to also look at that timing of when people respond to you. So let's say you send something. Let's say we've got our notifications, right, that are popping up in consensus and that we see that 9 a.m. is the time. Are we even paying attention to that as sellers? Are we paying attention to our inbox as sellers? Does it mean we have to work on Saturdays at 9 a.m.? Yeah, but we're also really well rewarded financially if we close that deal. So put in some time, look and see if they're online. Are they engaging? Are they looking at content? Can you send them a note? Did they just respond to you? Capitalize on the fact that they're attentive at that moment, right? And that you can go and have a dialogue when there's far less competition for their time. I think about this too. I'll move to the side so you guys can read. Urgent bird gets the worm behind me. Urgency is everything. So think about that with the timing as well. I had a former BDR on one of our teams named Christian Flaman. I'm going to just call him out because it's a positive thing. But Christian Flaman used to text me after I left our mutual companies, and he was like, "Can I ask you a question? Can I pick your brain? Can I do this?" And he once texted me at 6 a.m. and I responded like that. If he texts me at 11:14 a.m., probably not going to respond because I'm busy. And he caught on to that. And every time he asked another question, it was at like 6 a.m. because he's like, this is when I can get her attention. Pay attention to those signals. I'll start yelling.
Powerful.
I actually have a question that goes along with this really well, so I'll just throw it out there. What is too much contact in between contact?
Showing up on Todd's front stoop and asking him to sign my contract. Maybe too aggressive there.
Yeah. And maybe I'll tap back into Sam, something you said earlier is kind of, after that meeting, send them one thing, maybe 2, that might be pushing it. But, realize people are busy.
I think for me, like, I like to run a pretty specific cadence. So I think when we have a meeting, right, that's meaningful to us, we have multiple stakeholders in, et cetera, and we have kind of that, like, we're on to something, this opportunity has legs meeting. First thing I love to do before the end of the day is just make sure to send a thank you note. So that's just one point of contact. There's no ask, there's nothing else in there. It's also just my commitment. These are the things we talked about. I'm going to send this to you again, as I mentioned, by the close of business tomorrow, whatever it is, but it's only gratitude. So that's one touch point that day. Second touch point, whatever it is that I promised. And then I just like to think about, right, maybe once a week, finding a way to just drop something in. And I like to vary the mediums. I don't constantly want to fill their inbox. So can I tag them in something in a comment on LinkedIn that relates to what I said? Can I shoot them a DM? Can I think about the text? Can I write them an email? And I think the thing to keep in mind, right, like about a week, I think, is enough, right? Unless there's something light and personal that you can also add as a different touch point. But this is also where show me you know me is so important. What do you know about your buyers as buyers? But what do you know about them personally? What have we learned, right? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? Where do they live? What are they doing for the weekend? How do we get to know them so that we can find other places to nurture them with content that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're selling? If you look back at a post I wrote Tuesday, maybe yesterday, that's yesterday. I talked about gifting, how we use gifting. And like we just had a meeting today with a gentleman that we sent a gift to. It was a little Lego racer, orange racer, $6. But we paid attention to what he said. He loved Legos. He loved the color orange and race cars. We sent him a $6 thing, a different touch point. Don't forget we exist. Don't forget we're alive. Don't forget we paid attention. We're cut above. We're doing something a little fun to show you we know you. All of those things pay off. So get to know your buyers as people too, not just people with wallet share.
Love the different channels. Did you call it channels? Like,
channels.
I've never thought about that in full transparency, but I'm thinking about the psychology of it. It's kind of showing them like you're other places than just their inbox. Right.
Exactly.
You're other places in the world. You're out there, reading, you're researching, you're educated. Like, oh, wow. It's so powerful.
Yeah. You're participating in the overall conversation in different ways, right? That you are learning, that you're trying to expand your knowledge. And I just think about the different mediums to your exact point, right? If we're not just filling their inbox, right? What am I doing? So think if I was truly trying to close Todd and trying to close a deal with Todd, I would have my thank you note, I'd have my educational thing, but what else would I do? Then when poor Todd opens up his LinkedIn, he's going to see my content. So there's a post there that he's going to see. Now I'm top of mind. I didn't even have to do anything. Maybe 3 or 4 days later, I tag Todd in a comment and I'm like, hey, this is a great article. You should read this. I'm on his mind again. Maybe the next week I do send an email. Maybe the next week after that, I send a DM, right? Meanwhile, my LinkedIn posts are going, other emails are going, probably marketing emails from my company are also going. There's a lot of different ways that I'm staying top of mind while really trying to not be annoying, but those different channels are critical.
Yeah. You're surfacing something that reminded me back to when I first bought Consensus at Salesforce.
Yeah.
I thought I was buying software, and that was the lens I was looking at through. And the team here was doing some very similar things to what you described. And their founder had a book and I read the book and it started changing my thinking. And I very quickly realized that I wasn't just buying software. I was also buying a thought leader. And it's so important because bringing software in isn't just the use of it. It's change management. It's changing people's behaviors. And I think, it's so important to also to work with a partner that's a thought leader and that can help you along the journey.
Yeah. And I think that as an expert in how to use their own technology, right? So we buy there's 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 tech tools, probably so much more with AI now, right? Everything is a need to have. But when you buy something, like buy LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for instance, right? It's great that we have the tool. How do you guys use it? What do you do to be really successful, right? We sign up for Consensus. Teach us your tricks, your plays. Like, what have you guys learned that work effectively? Even getting to talk to a Consensus rep and hearing, hey, by the way, 9 a.m. Saturdays. That is the money time for executives to open up our content. Think about if you fire something away at them late on Friday night. It's the first thing they're going to see. Think about if you're online. Think about if you have them on text. Think about if they're opening your content, they're probably on LinkedIn too. Go and quickly see if they're online, and then you can send them a DM. You're teaching a methodology. You're teaching all these things that we're so smart. We wish we'd thought of first, right? But can really accelerate somebody else's success, not only with your tool, but in some of the basics of what they do from a sales process too.
Yeah, you're almost teaching them how to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
So Sam, a few minutes ago, you mentioned urgency. So I'm actually going to jump to our Q&A. We have a question, and it says, what do you think about a discount on price for a quick decision to create urgency?
Oh, Todd, what do you think about that? Especially as someone who I'm sure has gotten, if you sign by today, and with our quarter end around the corner, how do you feel about that?
I'm going to say some things, and Sam, you might totally counter them.
Can't wait.
But the way you said that, right? It triggers a, this is cheesy. Oh man, I'm being sold to. I don't like that, right? So it's really kind of a false deadline that I see, and I don't like it. But before I hand it over to you, this concept of, would you give someone a discount if they bought sooner? And my mind immediately goes to, if someone went to the website and completely self-served, why wouldn't you give them a discount?
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I've seen it out in the wild, but it will be interesting with agents and all these things coming up. If someone's like, yeah, I don't need to spend any time with the human, which is, by the way, very costly for businesses. I don't see why you wouldn't do it, but I really see that in kind of more of a self-serve model.
Yeah. I think a couple of things. So I think anytime we offer something, whether it's an answer, whether we're saying no, whether we're giving a discount, something like that, I think we always need logic tied to it. And that logic has to also be something that either the client can understand or that expires. And so I think about this when we say, if I went to Todd and I said, Todd, here's everything we want to sell you at Sam Sales. If you sign by the end of the quarter, we're going to give you 30% off. Here's what's going to happen. Life's going to get in the way. Probably not going to get our signature by then. And what are you still going to want? The discount, which is great news for us all. And we can't really take that back, right? So we have to think about, what's the value? What's the reason for a discount? I am all about transparency. I'll shout out to Todd Capone if you don't follow him on transparency, really smart stuff. But I'm all about transparency early on in exactly how you can earn discounts, right? So a couple of things. One, the speed of the deal is really important, and I'll talk about that urgency. 2, the volume of seats that you buy. 3, the volume of products that you buy. And then 4, the tenure of the contract. We can discount all day long. It's really up to you how much of a discount you want based on the actions that you take. What a role reversal, right? So now it's basically on the buyer to say, like, oh, I have all these coupons, right, that I can basically use. How do I do them? The speed of the deal, I think sometimes we're afraid to talk about the speed of the deal because it's like, they're going to know we're in sales and that we really want a deal and we want revenue, we want it quick. Don't be shy about that. So with a sales team at Sam Sales, I might say to a buyer, like, listen, like, we'd be happy to give you a discount if we can close quickly. The reason for that is, right, it's obviously less time on our side that we have to spend in meetings, qualifying, justifying, doing all this stuff. So if that's something that you can make a quick decision on, if you'd be willing to sign within the next week or two, I'd be happy to sharpen our pencil. Is that even a possibility? So I'm working in conjunction, right? I'm asking as a partnership, can we even do that? Because what we often say is, Todd, if you can sign, I've given you a 20% discount if you can sign by the end of the month, and not even knowing if you can. I don't know what the procurement process is. I haven't asked. I don't know what stamps or things are needed. So you need to have that as collaboration. The other thing that I would just say around that discounting for urgency is, especially as we come up to the end of the year, here's something really cool that you can do. Tell me how busy we all are in December. It is frantic, and the larger of a company you're working for, the more you are competing for sales ops, for procurement, and for legal's time. And you may have a $200,000 deal that's eclipsed by the $1 million deals that your peers have. So it's important to you, but might not be as important to the company. So think about how you can talk to your buyers in this way too, and to say, listen, one of the things that we're trying to do is alleviate the work that we have on procurement, legal, internal, sales ops, et cetera. With that in mind, if we can sign by 12th of November, before the Thanksgiving holidays kick in, before everybody else is pushing on their calendars, we would be happy, frankly, as a favor to our teams and to yours, to offer a discount. The reason we're offering you a discount is to lessen the workload that comes in December. And once that date passes, the incentive passes as well, because now you're one of 78 other people that are trying to get a deal done. So think of it like logic like that, right? It's true expiration because we were trying to avoid workload. Now that that's passed, there's no reason for the incentive, right? It's expired. Todd, what do you think about that?
I am learning so much today.
Oh, yeah.
Look, it's genuine. It, like you said, logic. I'll just say this, like, been in the pre-sales world my entire life. Like we are often observers of the sales craft, right? Like, yes, we are in sales, right? But like what you just said, right? That's not necessarily something that we execute on. That's not our job. And so, I've had the privilege of witnessing some amazing sales people in my life, and some not so great ones. And so, I'm just sitting here taking it all in. I'm definitely going to I'm going to get a recording of this, and I'm going to take a clip of this. I'm going to share it with all of our sellers, because it just takes the ick out of it.
That's it. I mean, I think if there's anything that our business stands for, it's like, how do we do all of these things without the ick? I think Amy Bolas talks about that. Another good follow on LinkedIn, like taking the ick out of a lot of the things that we do. But that's it, right? And I think to me, it comes down to just honesty, transparency, right? Really thinking about what's the reason that we're offering the things we're offering things for, or again, the logic around no. You guys are all probably getting into all of your T's and C's, your nitty gritties on the deals that you're working right now for a quarter close or for year-end close. And we even had a question this morning. One of our clients said, we need a cancellation for convenience clause, put that in. Now, any upstanding business is not going to accept a cancellation for convenience clause. But if I said, we don't do that, thanks, I'm kind of putting up a barrier. It's like I'm coming at them with my fists. I'm not giving them any logic. And so I think for me, the no's are so critical, but the logic. So we don't do a cancellation for convenience clause because, one, no upstanding business would do that. And I'd be really nervous of a company that would offer that to you. Two, we can't recognize revenue until that expires. So that means we couldn't recognize revenue for another full 12 months as a business. And then number three, right, the amount of risk that puts on us is tremendous. Even if we could offer it, take a look at that. We're helping our buyer buy into our point of view and understand, not just putting our fists up, but giving them logic for whatever we give. And if you haven't heard the cancellation for convenience, you surely will at some point. And now you have some good reasoning of why not to do it, other than your counsel saying no.
Yeah. I see our good friend Brian Oling is on. Thank you for being here, Brian. And he says, I see a new bestseller book, Taking the Ick Out of Sales. I love it.
Dude, Todd, it's yours. You do it. I still have to write my show
right.
me, you know me, that everyone's yelling at me about. But
all right.
I promise I'll get there one day.
So maybe someday I'll have some posters back here. It says Taking the Ick Out of Sales.
I will send them to you. I will make your custom posters. That'll be my gift to you when the book comes out.
Ooh, I love it.
That's awesome. And we're getting very good segues into our questions, because another question I have is about end of quarter, which you, again, briefly mentioned. So how do you use end of quarter as a motivating factor to close without being salesy? So it kind of ties into that urgency piece again.
I'll talk about that. So I think again, like it goes back to transparency first. And I think most of us hedge our bets on hope, and we're scared to talk about it. We don't have the conversation about the actual date that we're planning on getting signature. And then we also don't talk about it because we don't really know how to mention it. Feels icky. So one of the things that I would say is your date of signature should first tie back to value for the client. So let's say we're using Goldcast today as a webinar platform. Let's say you were selling something like webinars. what's the date that you want to get started? When is your live event? When do your webinars start? Let's work on that. When do you need to get started? Okay, April 1st, great. So here are things that need to happen. Our standard onboarding, 8 weeks, signature process, 6 weeks, customization, work backwards from the date that you both agreed upon so that you know when to forecast correctly. Can you create urgency? Is there a reason they should actually start January 1 instead of April 1? Is there something that you can do there to speed up the deal that's logical and valuable for them? The other thing that I would say, right? Sometimes we get leads, clients come in and they're like, okay, we're finally ready to go. We've got our ducks in order. We've got budget allocated, right? We need a few things outlined and then we're ready to rock. That's so wonderful. I am thinking about, this is the date that I'm going to put in on our side of when we'll have signature. It helps us with staffing. It helps us with organization, things like that. Is that reasonable? Is 10/15 a reasonable date to put in line for by the time we'll have signature done or not? What needs to happen on your side in order for us to get there? Don't be afraid to have that conversation. You're expected to have that conversation in sales. We need to know. But on top of that, you can say, I really, really, really value the forecast that I give, and I want to be a person of my word always. No worries if it's not 10/15, if it's 11/1. I just want to set expectations correctly so I can deliver on what I said for our leaders, just like I will for you. Does that date make sense? Because then you're also guilting them a little bit, not to make you look like an idiot, if I can say that. Todd, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I would just maybe give some examples of compelling events on the buyer side. So sales kickoffs, events that they're hosting, in-person trainings they're doing, on-sites that they're doing. I think in general, people don't think about how much lead time they need before those events to make it successful. And I think, when I'm listening to you, I'm reminded that sometimes you just have to remind them, like how much time they actually really do have.
Our buyers aren't the experts in buying this and implementing this and executing this. We are, right? So even Todd, I think about like your deep expertise of Salesforce of 20 years there. If somebody came to you and said, we want to get Salesforce up and rolling next week, you'd be like, that's hysterical, right? You know exactly what needs to happen, and they're counting on us to help them with that directive. You said something also really important, right? So when we think about how to create urgency, how to incentivize, how to stack a deal, we sometimes think about money, 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 but instead you just hit on SKOs, right? Are our clients having sales kickoffs? Or they have company kickoffs? Can we wrap up a visit, an onboarding, something in person? Can we add that if they do sign by the end of the year? And they would have to, because we need to know so that we can plan our trip and our travel, and so they can also plan their agenda. Are there things that you can do that are value add that are actually just a great win for you, because then you get in-person time and you can multi-thread your buns off at an SKO, right? That's the way my brain thinks. But what are the things that you can do, right, that don't shave revenue off of your deal, help you still hit your quota, commission, even importantly, accelerators at the end of the year, but then give you a land and expand win and great value for your buyers? Bring an executive with you, bring the account management leader with you, bring implementation leader with you if it's an important enough client. What a value to them.
Yeah.
And to you.
I love when you said money, money, money. I thought about this rep I worked with, and I was kind of complaining to their manager about how they'd worked with me. And he basically said, yeah, that person has bad sales breath. And I just like, it's such a good metaphor, right? And for us in selling, it's like, watch your breath, watch your sales breath.
your commission breath there. We used to have a rep that we called it the 12-5 closet. Would always go into a closet and offer deals that were at $20,000 to 12-5, but then would also like guilt our clients and say, I have to pay for braces for my daughter. I could really use you to sign this deal. Things we never want to do. Avoid the 12-5 closet and avoid talking about what you're going to spend their commission on. Really incentivize them there.
It reminds me of early days at Salesforce. This guy was on plan. It was going to be his last Friday, which was also end of quarter, unless he could pull it out. And I sat next to him and just essentially heard him doing that, right? Like, hey, if I don't do get a deal done today. I'm done. I'm out of here. Like, it was awful. It was so
No.
awful.
Yeah, don't do that, guys.
No.
Very simple. Don't do it.
And I still
Let's
see him from time to time, and I can't shake it.
I can't shake it. I know. I'm still connected to 12-5 Closet Guy.
I love the names, the nicknames too. Let's jump to the chat quickly. It says, what's a good approach on having a conversation with the buyer around budget cycles and when they have a new budget? I'd like to keep a calendar of each customer's budget cycle so I can follow up and stay top of mind.
My point to you guys would be to think about, right, budget cycles. Do they matter? Don't they matter? Do they sort of matter? So if we think about January of 2020, how many Zoom sales reps were like, I can't get this deal over the line because there's no budget. We're out of budget cycle. Can't do anything until July. How many Zoom reps were killing it in April, right? I'm sure they're out there selling their playbooks for you of how they succeeded in sales too, working in Zoom in April of 2020. Just kidding. But what we need to think about, right? Like budget cycles are important, and I think they're important for your larger, big plays, right? So we have clients that spend money with us all the time and then finally say, we're making our 3-year plan. We're making our budget for a 3-year plan. How do we work you in? What do we do? What are the discounts that we had access to because we're going to spend with you for the next 3 years? But I think what's really important, and I think Todd, any executive leader that's on the line alike, that one of the most impactful things that we can do for our sellers is teach them how our own budgets work, right? It was so rare that I got exposure to that as an IC, but we have budget buckets, right? So you've got multiples of teams that you can work across. If you can find value, if you can find ROI from a couple of different teams and departments, right? You're pulling budgets and you're taking $12 here, $12 here, $12 here. And before you know it, we have a $36K deal that got funded but might not have before because the team you were talking to only had $12K. I think just the other thing to consider, right, around budget is that, two more things. Discretionary budgets are a thing, and a lot of sellers don't know that, right? So a CRO, a CMO, a CTO might have $1 million to spend on whatever the hell they want. That's just slush money. So how do we start to talk about that? What are the budget buckets this comes out of? Are there discretionary budgets we can pull? Are there other teams that we can talk to so we kind of assemble something? Don't be afraid to do that. Again, that's our job. And the final thing that I would say around the budget cycle piece is that just to know, even though those budgets are established, there's always ways to repurpose them. Let's say I have $1,000 I spend on streaming, right? Well, it's already allocated to streaming. Okay, well, maybe I cancel Apple TV. I totally canceled Apple TV this morning. Maybe I cancel Apple TV and I have $6.99 a month to spend on something else, right? You can repurpose those dollars. Just because they're eaten up doesn't mean they're eaten up. But Todd, I feel like you are expert here, so I'm going to zip it and have you teach us the ways.
Not an expert. I'm listening again, and that's some like real jujitsu you were laying on us. That's impressive. Yeah, what you're doing is you're taking me back to when I was buying Consensus at Salesforce, and I was not an expert in buying. And every call I'd get on and be like, well, what about this department? What about this? And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. So I think just reinforcing what you're saying about like, we assume too many times that the person we're working with is an expert and they know where all the stashes of money are in the yard. And I think that's so important.
Can I point something out? I think that'd be really valuable. When you were at Salesforce and you were buying Consensus, what was your title?
I was a VP.
So you were a VP, and when you purchased Consensus, how many years at Salesforce did you have under your belt at that point?
Probably 16.
I'm talking to a 15-year tenured VP at Salesforce. I don't need anybody else. He doesn't need any direction. He knows exactly what he's doing. I'm golden. Todd just told us right? That he's not. He didn't have a lot of experience buying, right? But thinking about how budgets work, where to pull things out of. I think that's such a good eye-opening moment because we're quick to trust our buyers. We're also quick to trust that our buyers probably know how to do things. And the seniority often clouds our judgment. And I think it also clouds our judgment for the need to multi-thread, right? Like even Todd, in your role now and my role as CEO, I don't make decisions in a vacuum, and you don't either, right? Not great leadership if we just decide without getting other people to weigh in, right? Our influencing circle. So even, right, as we multi-thread, as we figure out where other budgets come from, as we teach you to buy, all really important things. And I would say this too for your quarter end and year end deals. If you guys are working, if you're selling to somebody that's relatively new, let's say somebody just changed jobs, right? You sold to Todd at Salesforce, he came over to Consensus, and you're like, yes. Well, Todd doesn't know how to buy a Consensus, right? He hasn't gone through the process before. He has now. But consider those people that just changed jobs. So you've got deals that are in your 75, 90% commit right now. Have they purchased there before? Do they know how it works? Have you asked those questions? Because they may know how to buy, they just may not know how to buy there.
Yeah, I just to further what you're saying, getting software approved at Salesforce was so hard.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that was the only mountain I could see, and it was the only mountain I was focused on. And
Yeah.
I'd done it a few times, and that's how Consensus landed in my lap. But I also knew, the times I did it before, I pretty much had to give away my firstborn child. I mean, it was insane. And so when that finished, I was, like they want to talk to me about budgets and whatever. I'm like, I can't even hear that. Like all I can think about is like getting you guys approved so we can try and spend some money with you.
Yeah.
And then once we did get that approved, it was like, oh, there's this whole other hill that I didn't think about. And it's interesting. Like we're currently selling to a very large enterprise software company, and the security approval took us almost a year.
It's crazy.
And we're at the exact same place with them because all they could see was that part of the cycle. And now we're like, okay, let's talk budgets. And they look at us like we don't even know what we're talking about. It's like, oh boy, like we've got some work to do.
That was Merck is that for me. Merck is that client. I've sold to them twice and I love you, Merck. Never want to do it again. My God, what a grueling process. Never again.
Much love.
But I think about that too, right? It took a year. Your poor enterprise rep. I hope this deal comes over the line for them, but it takes a year to just go through InfoSec, right? Security, all of that stuff. Also, the importance shining a light on multi-threading, right? Thinking about, and I think one of the beautiful values of Consensus as well, when you have all this information in there, when you've got value add, you've got your demos, you've got your articles, you've got everything in there. When you're multi-threading without your involvement, when people are coming in and looking at that and you can get the data, connect with those people, get meetings with them, offer to be a support, offer to just have a brain jam session with them. Because let's say you took a year to get through InfoSec, and let's say one of your key champions, the only one maybe you're connected to, leaves. What a kick in the pants to have to start over, right? So utilize the data that you get, because I think that's another missing link. We don't connect on LinkedIn. We don't send an email. We don't say, thanks for swinging by the room. How can I be of value? What were you looking for? Can I do anything to be of support? It's not about you. It's about you. It's not about you. It's about the buyer. So capitalize on that data.
Yeah.
This is great. You guys have such awesome insight. Yeah. I feel like I'm learning a ton listening. So as a marketer, which is great. But let's talk about champions for a little bit. So what have you seen work best when your champion has to sell to the rest of the team on working with you?
Ooh, I like this one.
Go for it.
The job of a champion is really, really hard. And the most simplistic way I think about it is it's the game of telephone. And what you're constantly asking your champion to do is absorb everything you've given them and then turn around, translate it, right? Because we have to translate it into our own corporate speak, our three-word acronyms, and spit it back out into the company to get buy-in. And it's really hard. And so I'm trying not to be pitchy about Consensus, but one of the reasons when I was at Salesforce buying, and that was my job, I was that person. I was constantly trying to do that, and it was overwhelming. And I found myself trying to make videos of it to try and scale myself because it's really hard. And when Consensus made me a video that I could take and then just hand to someone, say like, hear it from the horse's mouth, hear it directly from the source. That's really, really powerful. And it takes some of the burden off your champion. And the message is very pure. And I also think about that like after a conference, right? For anyone that's ever been to a large conference, you come back and you're all jacked up on Mountain Dew. Like you are fired up. How hard is it to convey that energy to other people to get them excited? And so I think video is a great medium for that because it's just like it eliminates the lack of purity of the message, the telephone game where things just get diluted. You get kind of pure source.
Yeah. I think great points. And I love the energy part of the conference too, right? Creating that video and talking about, here's what we talked about. Here's what's really great. Here's how we can solve your problems. I can't wait for next steps. I think especially if you are somebody who is fired up, passionate, dynamic on video, like really use that, because if you kind of read my words on paper, despite how many exclamation points I use, you're probably not going to get the same enthusiasm and passion and hand gestures as you would on video. So think about that benefit. I think we get stuck in a lot of places in sales, right? And one of that might be how do we create this champion to be effective as a communicator for us? How do we get around a particular gatekeeper and get more people? 17 of my deals are stuck at 50%. How do I get those to move forward? We often look at challenges and think, what's the next step from there? But what I think we really need to think about for this champion question specifically is the very first call. And so what I think, and really for any of those places where you get stuck. So I think what you want to think about is the first point of contact you have, whoever the lead is that inbounds or that gets referred to you or et cetera. Your job is to build trust, solve a challenge, and show that you really understand the space and the pickle that they're in and that you can be of value to them. That's first and foremost. Your goal, right, on that very first call is to think not how do I keep talking to Nicole? I want to, but what I really want to do is I want to talk to Nicole and Todd. I want to talk to Nicole and her boss. I want to talk to Nicole's peer so I can at least get two people talking about me. I want to do what we call at Sam Sales, double the quantity or double the quality from call 1 to call 2 as quickly as I can. The only way I can really do that, unless their house is on fire and they have a massive challenge, is build trust and show that I can solve a challenge. Show that if they advocate for me internally, I will make them look good, right? And it's probably a good use of everybody's time. Because if Nicole advocates for me, brings Todd on, and then I'm a disaster, probably not going to make her look great, right? So my job is to really work that angle on call 1. The second thing I would say, right, no one can really deliver as much value about your product, about passion, objection handling, et cetera, as you can. And so if maybe you haven't built that trust and the person says, listen, I'm going to talk about you in the meeting. I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to do everything. You just tell me what I need to say. Think about how you can be of value for them. If they want you, if they are trying to get this sold, have an honest conversation and say, I fear, right, that if you're presenting this to a buying committee, you're probably going to have a ton of questions, a bunch of objections, things you'll wish you had handled. Is there any way I could maybe come in for the last 5 minutes, the last 10 minutes of that meeting? You present us, right? Maybe they have all these questions, but I can come in to get around that so we can make efficient use and we don't burn the one chance we got. And then the final thing, let's say you just can't do it. Let's say these meetings are happening async, there's a bunch of different places, et cetera. Use Consensus, right? So exactly as Todd said, how do you make sure that you succinctly articulate the value of what you do? And even think about how you can split up a few different videos, right? Or pieces of data. If our clients typically have this objection, here's exactly how we work through that. Video 1, it's 1 minute and 14 seconds long, right? Same thing. You've got a couple of pieces of content where you can get right to what they're looking for. And then you can see how much of the content they're looking at. What was the first objection? What was the second video they went to? What was the next article they looked at? That's what I think about, right? Like you want to be, I think one of the easiest ways to think about this too, with your champion that's going before a committee is it's no longer me let's say selling to Nicole. Nicole and I are now in cahoots, and we're trying to figure out how to convince Todd, right? So she and I have our arms linked, and we're figuring out, I want to sell something. She really wants us in. How do we collectively make sure that Todd agrees, right? If you change that lens, it'll probably change the kinds of conversations you have too.
Yeah, man, you're bringing the emotion of buying back for me right now. And
You're gonna go back to
the
being an
first thing,
IC. I can't wait.
oh, love it. The the definition between champion and gatekeeper can fluctuate, especially very
Yeah.
early on. And so I would say, champion is used very loosely and broadly sometimes, but be
Mhm.
careful with it. Um,
Mhm.
and especially early on, the sales team here at Consensus was like, basically, Todd, we want to get in front of your boss. And I was like, I'm not going to put you sales folks in front of my boss. Like, I'm not that's going to make me look really bad. But what I was happy to do was to send them the video,
Yeah.
really zero cost for me. And I wasn't wasting my boss's time. They could do it on their own time. And the next thing you know, the folks at Consensus are calling me and they're like, who's John? Who's Tanya? And I'm like, oh, that's our COO. And all of a sudden, like now I had confidence to go like, well, and I'm like, well, how much of it did they watch? And they're like, well, they watched all of it. And actually they watched this one section 3 more times. And I'm like, okay, now I'm comfortable to broker that meeting because they have some context. And so that was a very light bulb moment for me as a champion.
Yeah.
Because when you ask someone to get their boss on a call, you're asking a ton.
Yeah. Think about that. I think it's such an important point, right? Like you guys heard Todd say, I'm not going to get you in front of my boss. So it's going to make me look bad. Don't be afraid to also say, right? And you have to do it at the right stage. Like maybe not the first date that you're on with Todd, maybe not your discovery call, but maybe call 2 and 3. How do we earn the right to get in front of your senior leadership? What is it that you need to see from us to know that if we present something to them, if we talk about challenges, it's going to make you look good, right? But also be a good use of their time. Again, that transparency, asking those hard questions. If we're a relationship seller, probably not an easy thing for us to do, but it's really important that we ask those questions. Our time is just as valuable as our buyers. So you want to make sure you're furthering the deal along, appropriate questions, appropriately timed questions, but understand what that is. Because you might also get from Todd an answer that says, you never are. They just don't give time, right? Everything funnels through me, through us, through these 6 other people. But here are the peers that you need to get aligned in order to get our COO to say yes. You also just made a great note on the distinction of champion. I think sometimes we get really excited about that person that's really excited about us. And we're like, that's all we need, right? So that person can be dangerous. Who is your economic buyer? Who are your champions? Who's the skeptic? How quickly can you get in front of the skeptic and change their mind? Because that's the person that's going to help you drive that deal in the end, and whose advice is probably going to be asked for first.
Yeah, being single threaded is so dangerous right now in this climate. And I say that from the sales side, but also from the CS side.
Yeah.
There's so many people changing jobs right now, and it's just really scary when you lose your champion. And I Sam, you're reminding me, and maybe this comes back full circle to how we started this with like selling in the gaps, right? Making sure that you're educating, selling something between meetings. If you're working up to that meeting with the CFO on pricing, man, that's a big meeting, and it's risky for everyone involved. Where's that video you could send ahead of time to say like, hey, here's the 3 levers that you can pull to get the best pricing from us. It's
Mm-hmm.
generic, right? Well, you wouldn't make a video that's like specific numbers, or maybe you would. But how valuable would that be to a CFO coming into that call to know kind of where they can pull, right? And I guarantee you, they'll show up to that meeting, they'll be educated, and you'll probably get to an answer faster.
Yeah. I think about this in a very weird segue. So we talk about how do we get time with people that are really valuable? How do we get time with sponsors, with mentors, things like that? So let's say I worked at Consensus. Let's say I'm an SDR. I managed to get Todd to agree to take a coffee with me. How do I make the most effective use of the 30 minutes that Todd has been so gracious to give me? Well, one of the things that I'm not going to do is meet him at Starbucks at 2:30 when we said we would meet, and then stand in line awkwardly, get his drink order, wait for our drinks, and then by the time we sit down, it's 2:18. I'm going to think about what are the things that I can do in advance so that when 2:30, when that clock starts, I have got 30 minutes of time with him. So a quick thing I'm going to do, what's your drink order? I'll be there in advance. I'll grab it. Can I grab you a snack? What is it? I'll meet you 2:30. I'm going to do that prep on my time, not on Todd's. Same exact thing here, right? So if we know we're going to meet with a CRO, CFO, CXO, person that we're probably not going to get another shot to talk to for a while, what can we do in advance? How do we prep them, right? How do we send a pre-read? How do we send all this information, a pre-read, right, that links out to Consensus and says, I've listed 3 of the materials that you want access for here. Here's discounting levers, our InfoSec, how we pass our InfoSec, all the documentation's listed here, and maybe something else that they need. I love the levers too, because again, help them prepare, right? Like, okay, I see if we buy 100 seats, we get a price break. And I see if we buy 100 seats for 2 years, we also get another price break, right? And then they can start to say, all right, I'm probably going to get presented with a proposal that's $250,000. I'm willing to spend 200. So I'm just going to come out of the gate and say, this is what we want. You have to figure out a way to give me a 20% price break and then leave. And then we're going to say, could you sign by the end of the month? Just kidding. Just kidding. Don't do that. Great call.
I feel like I've been in that awkward line at Starbucks before. That's a pre-sales guy for you.
It's the worst. And then you're like looking at the barista, they're not ready for us yet, but you don't want to miss your call and you want to look stupid. No, just like control freak, control all the things. I will show up at the bar early. I will show up at a bar early, especially if I'm meeting them at like 6 o'clock when I know it's already me Vesely. I'm gonna be like, look at me. I got seats. I got drink. I got peanuts. I know the bartender's name. Yeah, anyway.
I'd buy from you, Sam.
Thanks, Todd. I'm coming for you after this webinar.
I know you are.
That's awesome. We are quickly approaching the top of the hour. I'm going to give you one last rapid fire question. How can AI help fill the gaps?
Todd, you go.
I don't know how you can talk about AI quickly, but
yeah, this has got to be pretty fast. So I'm buying some time while I answer this. I think from everything I've read, right, and I don't have any advantage of anyone else on this call. We're quickly going to be in a world of agents, right? And I think there will be buyer agents, so an agent that's helping me buy, and then there'll be seller agents, right? So you're going to go to a website and there's going to be an agent there helping you. And I think it's going to be novel and awesome in the beginning, and it's going to quickly go like, this agent tends to just tell me everything I want to hear, including I'm looking really good today. Wow, I'm a skeptic, right? I asked you, does your product do this? And it kind of roundabout way said yes, but I don't believe it. And so I feel like we're going to hit this crisis of trust pretty fast. It's going to go from novel to like, I don't trust anything. And, something we think a lot about here at Consensus is we're not a Google, we're not a ChatGPT, we're not going to build the killer agent here. But how do we plug into that agent so that agent can go, hey, I just gave you an answer. Would you actually like to see it for yourself? Mm-hmm. Would you like to see a demo of that? Would you like to play around in a demo environment? And so I think that's part of the solution is like, it's going to be fun and novel in the beginning, but then the agents are going to have to figure out a way to build trust. And I think the way you do that is you capitalize on people's senses and prove it to them. That's my shortest answer.
Great call. I think it goes back to the old adage of knowledge is power. And so one of the really cool things that you can do in ChatGPT is just ask what's coming down the pipe for this particular client. They don't have to be publicly traded, right? Take a look at what is happening though. Are they opening offices? Are they hiring? Have they made an announcement for this? You know that their earnings report is coming out in another 6 weeks. What can you find out that's coming down the pipe so you can already be prepared with things to say, by the way, I know this cut's coming. I know this is happening. I know this is going on. I know you're opening a new office. Here are some things to think about where we can relate to that. I want to know that information, right? So again, you can fill the gaps and you could just show that you're proactive as all get out.
Perfect. That was perfect timing. And thank you both so much for being here today, for your awesome insight. Really enjoyed the session. And thank you to everyone for joining us. We will be sharing the recording, so feel free to share with your networks, with your friends, with your colleagues. Share the video. It's going to be great. But yeah, that's all we got. Sam, Todd, thank you. Thanks everyone.
Guys.
And
Yeah,
have a good
that was fun,
day.
Sam. Let's do this again.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for being a great host, Nicole. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the dialogue, and thanks you guys for attending.
Yeah.
All right, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Nicole.
you.
Okay.
Take care.